unfortunately, as is customary in the Caribbean, we have late starts. Notwithstanding that, as you can see, our example must be from the top. Our Prime Minister is here ahead of time that he is ought to deliver. Notwithstanding that, the proceedings of today are as follows: our opening ceremony, and then a discussion element after the opening ceremony. So at this time, I would like to recognize the presence of the Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique, Honorable Deacon Mitchell. This lady who represents ICANN, who is the International Corporation for assigning names and numbers in North America, Nelas Ceres. I'd like to also recognize Mr. Bevel Wooding, who is the Director of Caribbean Affairs, American Registry for Internet in the region. Our esteemed Mr. Vincent Roberts, who is the Chairman of NTRC. Thank him for being here. And obviously our beloved Pettifer Lewis Smith, who is the Executive Director of the Chamber, Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. My task here this morning is simply to welcome everyone. We have a large community online who this event is being streamed for the week, and so we want to thank everybody here who actually contributed to this session. Now, we shall first start, as is customary in Grenada, with a word of prayer from Reverend Dr. Osbert James.
Let us pray. Most holy and omniscient God, we acknowledge your presence among us today and celebrate the many gifts with which you have blessed us. You have made us with inquiring minds and provided in nature all that we need to facilitate the expansion of knowledge and the well-being of humankind. All regional leaders have acknowledged the critically important role that information and communication technologies can play in enhancing productivity of all the sectors of the economy, and as an effective means, when properly engaged, to reduce poverty, extend health services, expand education opportunities, and provide an overall improvement in the quality of life of the citizens of the region. Therefore, Creator God, help us to use these gifts wisely. We recognize that with all the good things with which you have blessed us, there are always those who would seek to exploit them for selfish reasons and criminal purposes. I pray that our governments and private sector will cooperate and collaborate to find the financial resources and expert services to mitigate the risks posed by those who will seek to infiltrate the ICT networks and systems for malevolent purposes. I thank you for this ICT week and pray that it will achieve the purposes for which it has been envisioned, and that it will give impetus to a spurring of ingenuity, a harnessing of creativity, a spawning of a generation of young men and women who are able to take full advantage of the possibilities of ICT for personal and national development, and more liberal access to the regional network for the common good. And may ICT be a linchpin in our government's transformative agenda. We make this prayer in the name of the one who brought into being all things out of nothingness and transformed the primordial chaos into this universe we call home. Amen.
A further welcome to all the members of ICANN, ERIN, and Caribnog who have flown to Grenada. There's a delegation of about 15 people that's going to be in Grenada over this week, delivering to our people knowledge. This week is not about so much what we do as end users, but the infrastructure that is needed to be put in place to make sure our society and our economy, as we envisage what we want to transform. But I urge that we become transcendent in our efforts, just as is the case of the light bulb and passenger travel, which has transformed the world and economies as such. What is technology? Technology is basically the practical application of scientific knowledge. And therefore, to put that in place in our everyday lives, most of which we are already in use, we have in use, what do we do with it? How do we do it? It's time for us in this part of the world to understand more about what is done, how it's done. And we are thankful for the organizations that have come, essentially, to make sure that that knowledge is everywhere, because it's no secret. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Wooding to the podium to say a few remarks.
Honorable Prime Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, those who are in the room and those who are online, good morning. I know for many of you, this would not be the first ICT-based event, activity, or week, and I want to spend just a few minutes describing the idea, the philosophy, the vision behind this initiative. And the first thing I want to say is that it is not an event. It is not a one-off. It is not another talk shop to talk about the promise and potential of internet and communications and technology. It is actually a very serious intent on the part not just of those who have come in. I represent the American Registry for Internet Numbers, where I serve as the Director for Caribbean Affairs. I'm responsible for interfacing with governments and supporting various institutions around the region in understanding how to take advantage of, how to optimally utilize information and communication technology. Technology is not the end, it is the means. And what we are focusing on and what we intend to do over the course of this week is to discuss the means to what. A lot has been said about digital transformation, a lot. You can read articles, you can check speeches, you can go on the internet, you can use ChatGPT, and you'll hear many, 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 many voices talking about the benefits and wonders of digital transformation. The digital part, unfortunately, is where most of the emphasis tends to lie. What we want to focus on this week and in the weeks and months and years to come is the transformation part. Transformation to what? In this room this morning, you would see not just the techies or those who have been sometimes unreasonably given the responsibility of charting a course for which there is no rudder. In this room, you will see the business leaders, the government, the civil society representatives, some from academia, all of the parties that are needed to really, truly define a transformation agenda. And at the core of it, that is what ICT Week is about. The organizers, and you can see it on the banners and you would have seen it in the flyers, the organizers include the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. I said industry. The organizers include the Grenada National Telecommunications and Regulatory Commission, the NTRC. Not just here in Grenada, but in the OECS as well. You have the Prime Minister, who has made some of the boldest proclamations about his intent to utilize technology to transform Grenada and to serve as a beacon for the wider Caribbean. These organizations are combining their interests, their priorities, and their strengths with other institutions like the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the CTU, the Caribnog, the Caribbean Network Operators Group. Some of these names you may not have heard. All of them have been toiling in the fields for years with one goal in mind: Caribbean development. Not technology development, Caribbean development, economic development, social development, Caribbean advance. And I've heard over the course of the week in the build-up to this event, well, why Grenada? And I've heard even more frequently, are we ready? This event, the persons who have flown in and invested time and energy and effort to be here, the organizers who have helped to associate this, they have collectively, emphatically given the response, yes, we're ready. Or if I use the quotation from one of the region's foremost philosophers, the Honorable Bunji Garlin, we're ready now. We're ready now. We're ready for the road. The digital road, that's the journey that we're going to be on. The issue is not how much technology is on this road to our advance. The issue is where is this road leading us to? And what we're hoping to do over the course of this week in the different fora, and you'd notice that the event is not usually structured. It is a business forum to discuss the impact of technology on our business community, the nature of the economic opportunities, and the very real risks that attend such opportunities that business leaders have to grapple with. We have the public sector forum tomorrow, which is going to address some of the more vexing concerns about government transformation, the digital agenda, the fact that our government stand at the vanguard of our digital advance, but are some of the least equipped institutions to lead that advance. We're going to have candid conversations, not just about the wonders and the promise and the benefits, but the very real challenges that we face and what must be done to overcome those challenges. And then on Thursday and on Friday, we're going to have the technical forum. And many would say, well, techies get together and talk techie things. Why would they need a special forum? Well, because for most in the region, sadly, they may have the certification, but not always the knowledge to know how to apply it to meaningful change or how to direct it in meaningful ways to create meaningful initiatives that can be sustained. And so what we're doing over the course of those last 2 days, Thursday and Friday, is we'll actually be talking to the community, not about how to understand the technology, but how to yoke it, how to make it a servant to a larger master. The master is our digital aspirations. The master is our economic goals. The master is our development agenda. How to yoke the technology to that master so that we can use it to an end that we define. That's the contour of this week called ICT Week. And we've made a commitment. Those who have come in have all confirmed their support to not attend an event, but to be part of the start of a new phase in our corporate journey. This is not the first technology event in Grenada. Grenada pioneered Texpo. Grenada was the first country in the Eastern Caribbean and the wider Caribbean to host ICT Week back in 2015 or 16. This is not a new journey. This is a new phase in our journey, and one that we are all hopeful and with your support, all excited about taking together. Thank you.
My welcome and thanks cannot be complete without those of you who have begged your bosses and those of you who are bosses yourselves to come out to support. As I said before, we have a large online community. This is being streamed as far as the UK, Europe, and North America for many interests. It is important to understand the context, as Mr. Wooding would have contextualized, yes, and as we reimagine, transform, and transcend our present situation. Members of the chamber who have been committed to this activity to make sure that what we put in place is something that will go far beyond us. Having said that, at her own volition, one of the experts and the big bosses in the world, Miss Neela Soares, she would now come to give you some brief remarks.
Thank you, Kenny, for that kind introduction. the Honorable Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, members of government, other dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here today. My name is Naila Saras, as Mr. Kenny explained earlier. I am the Vice President of Stakeholder Engagement at the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, which you'll hear referred to as ICANN later on in the week. And I represent the North America region. This is my first visit to Grenada, and it is no exaggeration to say that I am already in love with the island and its people. On behalf of ICANN, I want to congratulate you on organizing this forward-looking event, and thank you for having us here. I'm here with several ICANN colleagues, one of whom is possibly very well known to you, Mr. Albert Daniels, who works with you right here in the region. And I'm also joined by my colleague, David Huberman, from the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. And later on in the week, we'll be joined with another colleague, Mr. Nicholas Antoniello, who's also in the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. And we're focusing on the second half of the week, as Mr. Bevel Wooding explained with the Tech Day. Our team is here to show our commitment to the Latin American and the Caribbean community. And we have an entire team that lives and works out of the region to continue to support your work. This is a very important event for us. That's why we've teamed with the many organizations behind this event to organize this training and capacity building week. And we value the partnership and collaboration that this region brings to the rest of the world when it comes to participation in internet governance. And by that, I broadly mean the rules that the internet community puts together that determines the type of internet we all experience. This is why it's crucial for your community to engage as part of the larger internet community in determining how the internet operates. Engagement both inside and outside your region with this community ensures that your voice is heard. We welcome you to join us in about 2 weeks' time from 11 to 16 March in Cancun, Mexico for ICANN's 76th meeting. This one is known as the Community Forum. Joining the meeting in person is welcome, but it's also available virtually if you're not able to make it to the meeting. As I said, your voice is important and it will be heard, and that's exactly the point of having these meetings, is to get the community together to discuss internet-related issues. The global stakeholder model, which is what ICANN operates under, only works, and it's only legitimate if we have representation and engaged stakeholders from around the world, including right here in Grenada and the Eastern Caribbean states. ICANN is a structure made up of three major groups, if you will. There's the ICANN community. This is the community that develops the internet rules and policies that we operate under. The ICANN organization, which is a staff made up of myself and my colleagues here and several others around the world, and the ICANN board of directors. And it roughly works like this. You've got the ICANN community, this community, and many others around the world that set policy and priority. This is a fundamental reason why your voice is important, and you set the direction of the internet. The ICANN board then takes that direction and that policy work that the community worked on, reviews that work, and prioritizes it, and instructs the ICANN staff, like myself and my colleagues, to actually enact them. And as staff, our jobs are to ensure that the ICANN organization acts according to the community's direction, and of course within the ICANN scope of mission. This is why it's important for us all here to participate and for us to be engaged. Part of this mission that ICANN carries out includes deepening our engagements with partners around the world, such as this one. Today's example of taking part of this ICT week in Grenada is to focus on engagement with partners in the Caribbean region and to promote and encourage the Caribbean stakeholders to get involved in ICANN's policy development processes. We hope that this event is one of many to come, that commits us to help strengthen the capabilities of stakeholders in the region and to reap those benefits of the engaged stakeholders to then engage in the rest of the internet community. I'm thankful for all the colleagues that we worked with to organize this event. It has been a true partnership. This, again, is an example of our commitments to work together and to help make the internet work. All of our voices collectively matter, and your work in this region is vital. I'm looking forward to the rest of this week in Grenada. I'm particularly looking forward to Friday's event, the Tech Day, where we have youth and young professionals coming together, and that's when my colleagues in the Office of the Chief Technology Officer will do essentially the bulk of their work to help those professionals set up networks and learn about setting up networks. And we're particularly looking forward to that. There are additional avenues available to support your participation in ICANN and the internet community at large, such as programs called the Fellowship Program, the Next Gen Program, and others. Both programs that I mentioned provide scholarships to individuals to attend ICANN meetings and avenues for them to engage with ICANN's work. I encourage you again to talk to your local senior regional manager, Albert Daniels, to learn more about these opportunities. And with that, I thank you for your kind hospitality. I look forward to seeing and working with many of you this week and in future events to come. Thank you again.
If we don't try something other than which we have already grown accustomed to, or we have already mastered, we will never grow. Imagine transforming a space where Grenada becomes, and the Eastern Caribbean becomes, a facilitator of e-business, widening the scope of business opportunities as facilitators. Technology and its practical application can assist us in doing that. Friendly, fun-loving nations, yes, who deserve our stake in the world as the brand of the Caribbean. And I revert to Reverend James's prayers, remind us of our ancestors. Out of turmoil, out of strife, is one culture. Having said that, it is my pleasure to introduce, to give his views on what he has envisioned, our Prime Minister, Honorable Deacon Mitchell.
Good morning, all. In the Caribbean, when we say good morning, we expect the response to be lively back. Good morning, all. Good morning. All right, good. Well, welcome to Grenada for those of you who are visiting for the first time. I hope you enjoy your stay and you find this engagement, not an event, as rewarding as Grenada is beautiful. And I look forward to welcoming you back when you come again. I don't normally comply with the protocol list, but I think this morning, given how distinguished the list is, that I need to make sure that I, in fact, do so. So let me first recognize Mr. Kenny John, President of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and other chamber representatives who are present this morning, Reverend Osbert James, Mr. Vincent Roberts, Chairman of the Grenada National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, the NTRC, and I guess with all things ICT, the acronyms are mandatory. I hope I pronounced it correct, Naila Saras, Vice President of Stakeholder Engagement, North American Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, Mr. Bevel Wooding, Director of Caribbean Affairs, American Registry for Internet Numbers, ARIN. Mr. Stephen Lee, Director of Program Development, the Caribbean Network Operators Group, CaribNOG. Specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, those viewing online, warm welcome to you this morning. It's my honor to speak to you today on the importance of digitization in today's business landscape. The Caribbean region, like many others around the world, is experiencing the impact of the digital age. As business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders, it is imperative that we embrace digitization as a necessary step to transform our business operations and remain competitive. The benefits of digitization for businesses are numerous. Given the ability to increase efficiency, productivity, and profitability by streamlining operations, reducing costs, and providing new opportunities for growth and innovation. Digitization also provides an unprecedented opportunity for Caribbean businesses to reach beyond national and regional markets and pivot towards the global economy. It is now easier than ever before for our entrepreneurs, especially our young people, to earn foreign exchange without leaving our shores. The Caribbean region has much to gain from the digital revolution, but it requires businesses and the government to take action and provide the necessary support. It is imperative that we work in tandem to create an enabling environment that will allow businesses to succeed in the digital age. Globally, there are many success stories of countries that have embraced digitization and transformed themselves into a digital society. And I met yesterday with the special trade envoy from the president of Korea, South Korea, and the Republic of South Korea is one such example that we can readily point to. Estonia is another example that has become a leader in digital transformation through innovative policies and infrastructure investments. We can learn from their examples and implement similar policies and infrastructure investments that suit our Caribbean reality. And so we need to invest in technology. First and foremost, businesses must invest in the necessary technologies and infrastructure to meet the expectations of their customers, whether it is investing in e-commerce platforms or digital marketing channels. Businesses must be willing to adapt and invest in the necessary tools to compete in the digital age. And I'm not going to leave out governments. Governments also have a critical role to play in creating an enabling environment for digitization. This includes investing in core infrastructure such as high-speed internet and building the digital skills of the population through education and training programs. As a government, we must also develop policies and legislation that support a digital economy, such as the introduction of a digital national ID. A digital national ID can serve as a transformational foundation for driving a digital society. It can enable businesses to streamline their operations and improve the customer experience by verifying the identity of the customers when accessing online services or making transactions. A digital national ID can also provide citizens with secure and efficient access to public services, such as education, voting, medical services, tax, and other government social benefits. Plans are well on the way at the national and regional level through the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS, to implement a unique ID system in the OECS member states of St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the Commonwealth of Dominica. Once in place, the use of digital national IDs, which are part of the OECS unique ID system, will ease the process of cross-border movement of people and goods. These advancements are also paving the way for increased trade through e-commerce and digital marketing channels, in the OECS Economic Union, as well as the CARICOM single market and economy, and internationally. As citizens of the digital era, we have come to expect fast, efficient, and secure online services. Further, the COVID-19 pandemic solidified the importance of e-commerce in business continuity in the event of disasters. It is therefore crucial that the government and the private sector work together to provide these services for our people. By doing so, we can unlock new opportunities for growth and innovation and create a more prosperous and innovative future for the Caribbean region. In addition to the benefits of digitization, the advent of artificial intelligence, or AI, has the potential to transform businesses in the Caribbean and around the world. Through the use of AI, businesses can analyze data faster and more accurately, identify trends, and make better decisions. OpenAI, for example, has made significant strides in the field of natural language processing and machine learning, creating new opportunities for businesses to improve customer service and create new products and services. The impact of AI on businesses will continue to grow, and investing in AI will ensure a competitive edge in regional and global markets. As business owners and leaders in the Caribbean region, it will redound to our benefit to embrace this shift. In conclusion, the digital age is here and perhaps even gone, and we must embrace it if we are to remain relevant and as businesses profitable. As a government, we accept that the onus is on us to create an enabling environment that supports digitization, including investing in core infrastructure, building digital skills, and developing policies and legislation that support digitization efforts. Businesses, too, must prioritize digital literacy and education for their leadership and employees, and invest in the necessary technologies and infrastructure to compete in the digital age. The implementation of the Digital National ID will serve as a transformational foundation for driving a digital society, and we look forward to the support of the business community during the rollout of this initiative in the not-too-distant future. I close with the words of Steve Jobs, and I quote, "Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower," end of quote. Colleagues, I challenge us all to be leaders in the digital age and to embrace digitization as we unlock new opportunities and create a more prosperous future for the Caribbean. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of this morning's session.
Everyone, thank you for attending this small but important ceremony. I too would like to end with a quote. Father of Independence for Grenada. The difficult we can do, the impossible may just take a little longer. Having said that, it's important to recognize the efforts and the commitment of our Prime Minister and his government to allowing Grenada to take its natural course of action. As DigiBusiness, the digital world is with us to stay. It is perhaps the single most important activity in transforming humanity at this point. And I can't tell you the extent to which it will at present, but only what I could imagine. For the children of this country and the children of this world, Prime Minister, thank you very much. We will allow the Prime Minister, as he's a very busy man, to take his exit. I'm sure his sessions have been numerous so far and will continue throughout the day. So thank you very much, Prime Minister. Our visitors ICANN, area and Paragon. Everyone, we will take a 10-minute break to organize the rest of the sessions. So thank you for coming to the opening ceremony. For those who made it, should be exciting. Please feel free to share your experiences in the understanding of business and the sharing of information of how we can do things better. So, 10 minutes, thank you. Everyone, you can shake your leg if need be.
We set out to build something. Not for us, but for you. In 1932, we set out on a mission to establish an institution that catered to the financial needs of every Grenadian. We envisioned a space where our people felt secure and welcome to do business with familiar faces. This was more than a commercial enterprise. Because we considered you to be family, we saw ourselves as building more than just a bank. We likened this establishment to a house. Since we opened our doors in 1933, you've remained with us ever since, growing with us and saving with us, but most importantly, trusting us to safeguard your interests. Through unrest and turmoil, you put your faith in us to be the shelter against adversity. Your trust is the foundation upon which we continue to build to provide stability and support for your dreams and aspirations. Your trust helped our family to grow. And as we grew, your needs grew in tandem. So we developed, expanding our accommodations to make you comfortable, transforming our humble abode to a modern center of business and commerce, while preserving our warm, friendly, family atmosphere. As we furnished our house with efficient services, you decorated our offices, walkways, and counters with smiles, love, and satisfaction, giving us the impetus to improve and do more. It took vision to build this establishment, and our vision has always revolved around the well-being of our people. It is vision that continues to guide our development, a vision of growth, a vision of expansion, a vision of the future, a vision that recognizes that the world is a global village and that technology has become an integral part of our lives, a vision that embraces the efficiencies of technology and its importance in diversifying our corporate and retail portfolios, a vision that represents your vision, your interests, and your needs. You see, we built a house, but it didn't take us long to realize that people, our people, make it home. Welcome home.
Co-op Bank introduces e-payments, our new e-banking feature that allows you to make payments online hassle-free. Save time by paying your bills online. Instantly transfer money to accounts at other local and regional banks. Send wire transfers on the go to anywhere in the world, or send money to friends or family using Buddy Payment. E-payments, the swift, simple, and secure way of transferring money.
We set out to build something, not for us, but for you. In 1932, we set out on a mission to establish an institution that catered to the financial needs of every Grenadian. We envisioned a space where our people felt secure and welcome to do business with familiar faces. This was more than a commercial enterprise. Because we considered you to be family, we saw ourselves as building more than just a bank. We likened this establishment to a house. Since we opened our doors in 1933, you've remained with us ever since, growing with us and saving with us, but most importantly, trusting us to safeguard your interests. Through unrest and turmoil, you put your faith in us to be the shelter against adversity. Your trust is the foundation upon which we continue to build to provide stability and support for your dreams and aspirations. Your trust helped our family to grow, and as we grew, your needs grew in tandem. So we developed, expanding our accommodations to make you comfortable, transforming our humble abode to a modern center of business and commerce, while preserving our warm, friendly, family atmosphere. As we furnished our house with efficient services, you decorated our offices, walkways, and counters with smiles, love, and satisfaction, giving us the impetus to improve and do more. It took vision to build this establishment, and our vision has always revolved around the well-being of our people. It is vision that continues to guide our development, a vision of growth, a vision of expansion, a vision of the future, a vision that recognizes that the world is a global village and that technology has become an integral part of our lives, a vision that embraces the efficiencies of technology and its importance in diversifying our corporate and retail portfolios, a vision that represents your vision, your interests, and your needs. You see, we built a house, but it didn't take us long to realize that people, our people, make it home. Welcome home.
For it to be speeches among speeches among speeches. It's going to be interactive. It is also possible for everyone and anyone to give their 2 pence worth in terms of know-how and share their experiences. Yes? You are going to hear from the expert, but they are also keen to hear from you. I want to make a very, very hearty thank you to the Grenada Cooperative Bank, who has sponsored today's event, and especially to all the people who are online at this point in time, streaming. We are very grateful for that, for this sponsorship, and we thank them very much. So I see a couple of their reps. Yes? Just raise your hand. Yes? And we are very grateful for this, especially in terms of bringing technology to what we do. So, is streaming a lively part of what we do? Yes. I'm going to invite Mr. Wooding once again as we kick off the session, this interactive session, in conversation about what we're doing here and why we're here, and to give personal experiences from those who believe they have something to share, where they have actively pursued technological advancements. I'm talking about anything from coding to creating your own applications for your own business. Context is important. Mr. Wooding.
Thank you, and good morning again, everyone. This is the business forum, and I do need to say this before we get into the thick of the discussion, and we do want it to be a highly interactive session. Typically, when we hold these types of gatherings for the business community, and people get the invitation, there's an ICT matter dealing with the business, they say, okay, ICT guy, this one is for you. And that doesn't always turn out very well, because ultimately what we're trying to do in these kinds of fora is to make business leaders aware of some of the issues, not the technical issues, but the business issues that attend technology decisions. And a lot is lost in translation when only the ICT mind hears it, if they are not also possessing a business mind. So the report on what happened in the meeting wouldn't always come back in a way that translates into, oh, this is what I could do to make sure that we don't get left out, that our competitors don't overrun us, or that we actually lose out on business opportunities. And we want to make sure that in this context, the context of Grenada ICT Week, the context of what the Prime Minister has said is the agenda, not just for his government, but for the country and the wider region. And those of you who don't know, the PM also sits as the current chair responsible for technology, science and technology at CARICOM level. So these statements and the discussions we've been having are how to make Grenada the reference point for the rest of the region when it comes to understanding how technology can be applied to development goals. And I want to emphasize that word, applied to technical goals. The PM gave a quote, Kenny gave a quote. I want to add my quote to the mix, just for rounding it off. There is a song called Dedication by David Rudder, and there's a line in that song that was just going through my mind as I was listening to the PM speak and playing back in my own mind the many, many, many issues that attend ICT-based development in the region. And I know around this room, we are well versed in some of those issues. Some of us, if shirts were to come off, you would see the scars of many attempts to make the most out of the technology. Bandwidth, high cost of goods and services, inadequate human resource supply, finding the right people to do the right things, frustrating policies that restrict our ability as business leaders to move forward with the kind of ideas and innovations we have, not the least of which, for example, is the vexing issues that still surround payments, electronic payments. We're business people. We want to get stuff done, and yet some of the most rudimentary things that we're reading about in the magazines and seeing on the internet, we cannot get our banks, our financial services institutions, or policymakers to address adequately. That is what the Business Forum is about. It's not glossing over those things and saying, well, let's just apply technology and abracadabra, magically, everything will be wonderful and we'll all go and sing some version of Kumbaya as we march to the banks with our profits. That's not how this story goes. And so what we want to do in this forum is to actually confront those issues. We don't have a technology challenge, not here in Grenada, not in the region. Right? We don't have a challenge of technical possibility. What we have is a paradigm challenge. The need to shift mindsets to link things that are not always linked, particularly around this issue of technology. Technology is not for the technical people. It is not. Sorry to break that news to anyone who thought it was. I apologize. Well, actually, I don't apologize. That's what we're here for. We're here to talk the truth. The truth is the technology has to be the servant, not the master of our development agenda. I have to keep repeating that. It has to be the servant, not the master. Which means as masters of our business, as masters of the economic development, as masters of the future we want to craft, we have to say, declare, proclaim how we want technology to yield to our objectives and our goals and our advance. Everybody with me? That's what this is about. So the quote I want to share with you is, out of a muddy ground, 10,000 flowers bloom. Song by David Rudder. I think the name of the song is Dedication. And it speaks to everything we have to address in the coming weeks and months. It is a muddy ground. There is no nice, clean, easy, neat way for us to overcome some of these challenges that we face. But out of that ground of confronting the issues, out of that ground of challenging the status quo, out of that ground of looking ourselves in the eyes and asking what kind of future we want to see, out of that ground of yoking, harnessing, leveraging, whichever word you want to choose, the technology to do our will, we can see the blossoms of our ambitions. That's what the forum is about. That's what the forum is about. There is a future, whether you look at it selfishly, my business, whether you look at it altruistically, my community, whether you look at it nationalistically, my country, whether you look at it regionally, our region, there's a pathway in which technology plays a role in helping us to get from where we are to where we want to get to. And what we want to do in this forum this morning is something that I'm hoping to see more of in the coming season. And that is share the good that is going on. Because a lot of times we are aware of what's not working. But the truth is there are many actually positively inspiring examples of how persons inside of all of the constraints that we are facing are doing great things to overcome the challenges that we face. Some of those examples that we'll be sharing today come from business people right here at home. Some come from persons around the region. And I've asked them all to share the story in a very candid way, not a sugar-coated way, very candid way. I had to deal with this, but I had to confront this, however. And so we can get a sense of the possibility that is already at our doorsteps. I mentioned this morning the question that we got several times in the planning process for this meeting. Is Grenada ready? I think behind that question lies a deeper identity challenge, if you will. It's not, is Grenada ready? The question really, when you personalize it, is, am I ready to do what is necessary to take things forward? And I'm hoping, and I spoke to Kenya about this in designing the structure of the week, that by starting with our business community, the group that almost by definition has to confront these issues on a daily basis, and the group that is perhaps most determined to find a way forward, that if we can create statements that talk about or that point to the way forward, we could inspire the public service, we could inspire the policymakers, we could command or instruct the regulators, or most importantly, we can give the youth the hope that they need to play the part that they alone can play in shaping the way forward. How many with me on that journey? Yes, yeah? How many with me on that journey? That's what the forum is about. The forum is let's talk truth to self. Let's hear the examples. There is much to celebrate. We have one of the speakers this morning. I'm not sure he knows that he is going to be a speaker this morning, but you'll know now. Is Brent McIntosh. Brent McIntosh is what we could call a serial entrepreneur. Some know him with his hat as former executive at Flow, Columbus. Some know him as farmer extraordinaire. Some know him as one of the region's foremost network engineers running a successful network consulting organization, taking lessons learned here in Grenada and sharing it for profit and for personal benefit and good across the region. I want Brent to be one of the speakers that we hear from this morning. Brent was with me when we first came to the plan about establishing things that can be used as references. And I remember those early conversations well when we were saying Grenada needs an internet exchange point. Now, full disclosure, I'm not going to go into internet exchange points in detail. It is as interesting as talking about WASA needing a new water pump. There's not much excitement to it. But without that water pump, WASA can't pump water to you. Without a local internet exchange point, your internet service providers can't pump the quality of internet that you need to build your digital future. But yet, if you poll the business community, how many business leaders are clamoring for growing and investing in the IXP? Not many. Why is that? I ask rhetorically. Because you don't know what it's about, most of you. And should you know? Well, should you need to know what kind of pump WASA buys to get water to your pipes? Not really. But you need to know that WASA has all of the equipment it needs to provide the service that you need to get your business done. That's the business Brent is in. The business of the unsexy parts of the internet that make the digital economy possible. But Brent is also a business person. And that's why I think he's our ideal first speaker. And an unscripted, as I said, we're going into an unscripted kind of mode. He has no prepared remarks that I am aware of, right? Good. So this is Business Forum Day 1, Real Talk. And I want to invite to the podium Mr. Brent McIntosh, serial entrepreneur, business leader, network expert, agriculturalist par excellence. You see the multi-hyphenate swagger, right? You see the swagger? Right. Musician, sorry, my bad. Also musician. This is what a multi-hyphenate looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, Brent McIntosh.
Wow. Very pleasant good morning to all, to those who are listening online. And as Bevel mentioned, this is not scripted. I really prepared for Thursday, but given the opportunity, I'll be happy to tell you a little bit about what makes our internet infrastructure, our part of it in Grenada, ticks, and how businesses are embraced it. I actually this morning requested permission from the Grenada Co-op Bank to use her name. I just did. So I'm hoping that you can help me pay the fines for any of the lawsuits. It's going to be all good. So on Thursday, though, we are going to speak a lot about the internet exchange. And I'm almost tempted to tell you what an internet exchange is, give you some technical ins and outs, but we're going to save that for the Tech Day on Thursday. Now, from the perspective of businesses, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do, I started working for a service provider, providing internet access for end users, for businesses, to ensure that they can actually connect to the internet and do whatever they need to do to make their money. Years following that, I entered into my own business, and I decided to go into consulting because there were tons of customers and clients that knew what they wanted to do, but they didn't understand how they need to get there technically so they can improve their businesses. One of these clients today is the Grenada Cooperative Bank, and of course today is their day, so I'm going to talk a little bit about them. Now, everything starts with an idea for a business. The Grenada Cooperative Bank, and guys, disclaimer, they didn't pay me to market them. I'm just telling you from what was the reality. It all started with an idea. We want to ensure that our bank is very resilient. They want to actually have networks where end users can actually use their applications at lightning speed. They want to ensure that their services are up 99.99% of the time, meaning that they only expect to have 5 minutes of downtime per year, right? And that's a really big ask, right? So infrastructure and resilience is critical to that. The idea of having a business that I can run pretty much 24/7 without any issues, it's a tough ask. But they decided to invest in technology and infrastructure that will ensure that they can provide that kind of uptime. Uptime meaning, hey, we're up 24/7, 365 days a year. It's not one of the, investments that's cheap. It's not, because you need to have proper skill sets, proper hardware, and of course, maintaining that operations. I just want to add as well that what we do here in Grenada, as technology enthusiasts, subject matter experts, the whole idea is to build our part of the internet infrastructure, and I'm going to show you how that led on to what this bank is actually doing. So we decided in Grenada, we're going to ensure that we're going to form stakeholder groups, build out infrastructure that makes us just as good as the big guys in the world, the United States and all those other huge countries that have their major internet infrastructures. We built our small part in Grenada. And we have end users, we have software developers, I'm looking at some of them right now, who use that infrastructure on a daily basis and they don't even know it. And again, we're going to speak about that on Thursday. So just to give a little idea though, very crucial and important internet content for businesses, including the banks, are served right here from Grenada. I bet a lot of people didn't know that. I'm on Facebook every night. Well, not me. You're on Facebook every night. I don't use Facebook. And why is this Facebook content streaming so good? Why am I downloading these pictures so fast? Why am I uploading so fast? Well, the servers which you're pulling and uploading that content to sits right here in Grenada. Netflix, I noticed my Netflix streaming has improved. You might ask yourself that. Well, where is the Netflix content coming from? Well, what happens, let me give you a little idea. It's all about analytics, right? So every provider, every business try to implement some form of analytics in their business. Reason being, they need to know what the important stuff is. Well, when streaming providers like Netflix realize that, hey, these guys pretty much like to look at this Netflix program. It's pretty popular in Grenada. Well, we're going to take that content from our main servers and dump it into our edge cache servers in Grenada. So now, those popular content can be served locally. Well, we try to do this for every major content provider in the world. So I'm going to call a few names. We have Akamai content, all your operating system updates, your Windows updates, your Linux updates, all your computer updates. Most of them come from content servers that sits right here in Grenada. And I know a lot of persons didn't know we did all that stuff. And it's not a one-man show. It's a regional and multi-stakeholder group that inputs, and we're going to speak about that more on Thursday again, that give those inputs to help build our part of the internet. We here in Grenada are part of the internet. The whole idea is to transform ourselves from not just being end users or consumers. The whole idea is to ensure that we can also be persons that build and develop, and that's what we try to focus on. So just to go a little bit back to the business side, businesses are now leveraging that ability to have content for e-commerce and businesses hosted locally in Grenada. So smart businesses, for example, a particular bank I just spoke about, they realize that, hey, well, what if my end users can access my e-commerce services right here from Grenada by connecting to the Grenada's local internet exchange infrastructure? Yeah, we're going to do that because we want our end users to have the best experience possible. Now, as quite a few of you all know, I can stand here and talk for the entirety, but I can't. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Thursday, where we're going to look at the ins and outs And it's just not going to be all talk. I'm going to show you what's happening. As a matter of fact, I'm even tempted to show you what you've been doing on the internet last night. Just kidding. All right, so looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent. You know, one of the reasons why I like to hear about this Grenada Internet Exchange Point success story is because I know what it means for building out the digital economy. A lot of times that's just words. We want the digital economy, we want the knowledge economy, we want these things. And it's like thinking about a house without considering what the foundation is. And unfortunately, for most in this region, a lot of visible structure is built, but not a lot of foundation structure is invested in. And one of the things that COVID did, the pandemic did, was it exposed the fragility of that substructure. And many of us would have been, again, frontline facing some of the issues when everybody had to rush online. Whether we had kids who couldn't get connected to the new schoolwork as the school moves over, or businesses couldn't suddenly get the kind and quality of internet we needed to effectively work from home. The Grenada Internet Exchange Point is the equivalent of a bandwidth factory, because any internet traffic that is not intended to go out of the region gets to stay and run over that local service. And what the team at GREX has done is essentially by bringing those foreign content providers into Grenada, it means that things that you would have had to have gone out for. And the economics of it is actually quite simple. The longer the distance, the higher the cost. The longer the distance, the longer it takes to get content to and from Grenada and to wherever that source is. By bringing those services home, you shorten the distance, you lower the cost, you improve the quality of the service. Now, what Brent didn't mention, and what is again sometimes lost in technical translation, is that to participate in an internet exchange point like major US and European companies do, local companies need something called autonomous system numbers. Now, here we go again with the technical terms and the acronyms, ASNs. I'm not going to explain what an ASN is. All I'm going to say is this. Without it, you can't connect to the local exchange point and get those benefits. Benefits of cost, benefits of service, benefits of reliability. That's the important business takeaway. Then you can get the tech guy to say, hey, or the tech gal, to say, hey, what do we need to do to get an ASN to connect to the IXP? And then you suddenly sound very technical. 2 acronyms in one sentence, right? What do we need to do to get ASNs to connect to the IXP? And they will tell you, well, different things need to be required. You need to put in this application, and then you can legitimately peer at the local internet exchange point and get all of those benefits. Interestingly, in another first for the region, the Grenada government was one of the first governments in the Caribbean to get its own ASN, its own autonomous system number, allowing it to put government services on the exchange point, which meant that any digital services that are provided by the government of Grenada now have the shortest path to local consumers, to local citizens, to local service consumers. And that's what this is all about. Again, the issue is not what's an IXP or what's an ASN or what is BGP routing or any of these things that the guys will be talking about on Thursday. The issue is how can that help my business? How can it make my business more resilient? If there is a cable cut externally and Grenada gets cut off and you are providing local digital services to local consumers, you continue on as if nothing happened with a local IXP. To me, that's business. That's what doesn't come home when you ask a tech person to go out into a meeting and find out what the business benefits are of participating in something as innocuous as a IXP. But if you're concerned about business continuity, if you're concerned about business resilience, if you're concerned about lowering the cost of digital communication services, then you need to know there is a thing locally that you need to connect to get your business done. And that's what it's about. That's what Brent and the team at the Grenada IXP have been working on for the last, going on, how many years? 12, 13 years. And Brent and I were in the conversations with Akamai in the beginning when they said, Grenada is too small for us to think about bringing our content here. And we said, no country is too small if you have people that you need to reach. And we worked something out. Because here's the other secret, and this is something that any business person in this room should be fully aware of. behind all the big name companies, Akamai, Microsoft, Cloudflare, and these global content providers, behind it all are people. And we sat with a person, not with a company, a person in Akamai and said, you need to pay attention to these small island states. And here's what we will do for you. What are you willing to do for us? And we had a conversation. We negotiated Akamai's first small cache, which was located here in Grenada. That's a Grenada success story. That happened right here. That guy, not a foreign guy, that guy was responsible for making it happen. And that's what I'm saying. Part of what we want to do on Thursday and Friday is to make sure that more people recognize that we have the guys, the gals, the people who can make stuff happen. Is Grenada ready? Yes. We're ready. We have been ready. We have been ready for some time now. And so I want us to keep an eye on that development. If you have any digital services that you are interested in having operate faster, that you are interested in having reach your consumers with greater reliability, you need to have someone in your company talk to someone in GREX, the Grenada Internet Exchange Point, about getting closer to that kind of local internet traffic exchange. Right, so that's our speaker number one. Remember, we're inside of the real talk, who's doing what where. And next up, so I'm going to mix it between some of the local success stories and some of the visiting persons. And I want to say this about the team that has come to participate in this event. Most have some experience in some manner of business. So we all pretty much well-equipped to sit down and have conversations as peers with the business community. I'm responsible, in addition to my RN hat, where I do all the government ICT stuff, I'm also responsible for heading up the Caribbean Agency for Justice Solutions, the only regional agency dedicated to providing technology solutions to the courts, to law enforcement, and to the public sector. That's my job. Doing it effectively, doing it without government subventions, building innovation that creates economic capacity to support a regional institution. There is none other like it. So when I tell you, if you check our backs, you will see the scars. We know what the nature of the battle is. We understand what the issues are in terms of confronting Caribbean realities. This is not theory. This is real life. And there are two other gentlemen I want to bring up next. I've asked them to tag team their stories. Stephen Lee, who heads up Caribnog, the organization that is responsible for Thursday and Friday's activities, and Kevin Kilowan, founder of a company called Nuco, which uses workflow automation software, and they're now tiptoeing into artificial intelligence solutions. I want them, and they're again, both heads of private sector organizations, but also, for better or for worse, with an interest in seeing Caribbean development and seeing us move forward. So I want to invite Stephen and Kevin forward. Now let's welcome them. And I've asked them to title this lightning presentation, Tales from the Trenches, right? Survival stories of Caribbean CEOs working in digital times. So Stephen, Kevin, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Bevel. Morning, everyone. Stephen Lee, Caribbean Network Operators Group. Give myself a short timer here. Keep it short. So I'll take the more rudimentary and foundational part. I think Kevin will take it to another level, future leaning. But picking up on something that Bevel said this morning. That IT is a servant of the business. And I want to talk a little bit about that aspect and how it works, how it certainly worked out in my day-to-day life. So I'm what would be, I'd classify 100% geek, nerd, all of that stuff, really interested in code and so on. And I started out as a network engineer. And by network engineer, I mean the good ones or the bad ones, as in, I'm going to reboot the server during the workday because we need to get stuff done. I did that. I actually did that. But that was me. But I did encounter about 3 or 4 years into my career a boss who who started to take me under his wings, and he would always say this thing to me, which I didn't appreciate until much later, in which he said, "Stephen, the business drives IT. IT doesn't drive the business." And he'd say that over and over, and he'd be taking me to meetings, and I'd be sitting at tables with other executives discussing the business. This was a money transfer company, so they'd be talking about money transfers and so on, and I'm wondering why I'm there. But he was creating a particular, I guess, viewpoint in my mind about what he wanted technology to do in the business. And over time, there was a very clear transformation in which I wasn't doing projects that were just cool and fun for me as a network guy rebooting the server in the day, but I was actually doing engineering projects and software projects and so on that were 100% aligned to the business. And I think one of the major things, I guess, that I want to bring out here for us from the perspective of business leaders is to see IT as enablers of whatever the business wants to do, whatever the business wants to get done. I know everybody has IT departments and access to IT people, but the default setup in the Caribbean tends to be like there's a technical problem, let the IT people figure it out, and there's a kind of distance and a kind of, I have to rely on you to give me some stuff. But certainly by moving into a paradigm in which, let me see if I can harness IT. And that starts with the business leadership, not so much the IT leadership. The business leadership saying, let me harness IT, initiate the reaching out, pulling on the select people who would be appropriate, because some IT people just won't flow with that. But you can select IT people who have a mind to getting the vision driven from somewhere else, and over time, give new sight, give new, this is what we're doing, this is how it works, encourage, all of those kind of things, motivation and coaching. But over time, I think we end up with a different Caribbean technology landscape, but not really a technology landscape. It's business and culture and economic landscape, because what we're going for is a set of soft, people impacting outcomes, not so much technology outcomes. But the technology outcomes definitely will be technical, because you do have to reboot servers. That's a good part. You do have to reboot servers at the end of the day. But I guess it's the why, the how, what's the purpose, why are we doing this? Let's make sure that we're doing it because it's something that the business or the society, the community needs, not because it's new tech. Right? So just wanted to share that. 4 minutes.
Hi, good morning. It's good to be here. I think Stephen and I got just slightly more notice than Brent did that we'd be up here talking. So thank you for the more notice, Bevel. I laughed when Stephen said he reboot the server during the workday. My background is software. Wrote a lot of code. I brought down a mobile network for our country. So I think I beat the reboot the server, Stephen. But no, something Stephen said, and I think it's been the theme that we've been hearing this morning, and the issue of business and technology, and something he mentioned there, the word that came to mind was disconnect. And a lot of times business leaders have this disconnect between my business and the technology that facilitates the business. And we all know, let's send the tech people to this meeting or whatever it is, and you don't connect the need for business strategy with how you leverage the technology to facilitate that strategy. And the internet has been a massive transformative set of technologies that would have spanned, maybe 30 years or thereabouts, from the early internet into what we know today. And so as transformative as it has been, there's been some time that allows business people to eventually get into the groove, so to speak, of leveraging that technology to conduct business, either conduct their current business better or create entirely new businesses. The thing that I'm thinking about a lot now, even as a business leader, is artificial intelligence. And I don't think AI is going to be as forgiving to business people if you allow that disconnect to remain. I think AI is going to move a lot faster than the internet did in terms of its transformative and disruptive power. And as a result, as business leaders, we have to be able to think about what this means and how we equip ourselves, not just to understand it to a certain degree, but how do we actually maximize it to transform our business into business that's going to be relevant in a world where AI proliferates. And I think so whether you are the CEO of a marketing company or a manufacturing company or a financial services company, AI is going to significantly impact those businesses. And it's critical that we start to understand that. And I don't mean go and learn about generative AI and how it works and machine learning and those kinds of things necessarily, but understanding that the emergence of this technology and the speed with which it is going to transform things is critically important in my mind as a business leader to understand that as a reality that we're currently looking at and to be able to find ways to embrace that to create strategy for your business and to identify new opportunities and to mitigate threats that will come as a result. So, I think one of the big things for me is that while we've had quite a good bit of years, a good run time in terms of adopting internet technologies, AI is going to be a lot faster, and therefore, as businesses, we need to be able to see that from now and begin to plan and think about it accordingly. So thanks a lot. I look forward to the rest of the session over the next couple of days and seeing you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Stephen. Just before I spring the invitation upon our next speaker, there are a couple of things I want us to note with regard to, again, some of these things that you read in the headlines. Artificial intelligence being one of the more popular topics these days. We are actually at a juncture in the technology curve that is very much like the start of the World Wide Web. And the general thinking has been for the region that we will lag 5 to 10 years behind most other regions as it relates to technology. But for this one simple fact, at every inflection point, there is an opportunity to get to the front of the line. And it's not an opportunity to get to the front of the technology line. Like for those in this room, for business leaders, it's actually an opportunity to get in front of the commercial line, to create the kind of enterprises, to create the kind of products, to offer the kind of services that leverage the new technology from the place where it is new to everyone. In other words, we are actually at a point where the playing field has been leveled. And so when you hear Kevin talk about the use of artificial intelligence, he is not talking about going and reading some Google articles to figure out how to use ChatGPT, one of the more popular AI-based services. What he's talking about is having a different type of inquiry or interrogation about how your business, whatever area it is in, can utilize these models to accelerate your business plans. And there's something very interesting about the AI debate that we are trying to steer the region toward. Most of the articles you would read about artificial intelligence, for example, as a caution, make assumptions about the environment in which those technologies exist. So for those who read US-based media, it will assume that legislation, that other economic supporting elements like the human resource pool or like the policy frameworks, that they're in place. It would presume that there are ecosystems that allow you to simply put your idea upon an existing set of models to get the most of it. But for us in the region to get the most out of it, let's say the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce were to take a concerted look at artificial intelligence and opportunities for the Grenada business community. Where we would have to begin is not where your US counterpart would begin. we have to begin in developing the local learning models. By that I mean the things that train AI to be intelligent. We'd have to create data sets, repositories of information that tell it how we operate, how we move culturally, what are our practices and tendencies so that it could make intelligent and informed decisions. Someone would have to invest in that foundation. And that's where this becomes a very interesting discussion, because your counterpart in the States is going to presume reasonably that MIT, Stanford, Columbia, FIU, or any of these US universities are already doing the courses, are already putting the pipeline of human resource in place to jump upon the AI revolution. If we want to get at the front of that line, whether we're in business or in government, we also have to look to what's at the foundation of that line. And that is the human pool, the academic infrastructure, the learning models that tell it how we respond and how we react. If we try to import foreign AI solutions, we get foreign AI results. And that's a serious issue. So when you hear Kevin talking about it, or as we are doing now with the agency, we have partnered with the University of the West Indies. There's no snap your finger and get Caribbean AI. We have to start building the research. We have to invest in the human resource capacity. But if we do it now, we are at the front of the global line. And that's what I want to say again. So if your business is interested in AI from a Caribbean business development standpoint, you have to put some skin in that game. If you want to recognize the benefits for your service or for your business need, you have to actually now pool your resources to ensure that we can actually get to that start point where we have the kind of data that we need to start talking about intelligent use of these models. And I keep saying that if artificial intelligence requires real intelligence to get to the state that it has to get to, you have to be smart about how you invest in AI. And that's what I hope we're hearing in some of these sessions. So AI is important. We need AI developers. We need AI solutions. But we need AI investments in the pipeline that allows us to have a sustainable artificial intelligence future. Now, speaking about sustainability, I think that's a good segue to go to the next lightning speaker. This person, who some of you may know, is not very popular locally or regionally, has been responsible for establishing one of the most innovative insurance and reinsurance companies, not just in the region, I would say in the hemisphere, and shoulder to shoulder with anything else in the world. A local success story that is undersung, if not unsung, because he's just one of the guys. But in our midst, we have a true pioneer and a true innovator. Now, he's already blushing. You mightn't know from his complexion, but he's already blushing. But it is true. It is actually true. And I want to invite Mr. Kenny John, President of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, CEO, founder, and chair of the Antillean Group of Companies, a regional man, a son of the soil, and someone who I've come to, over the last few weeks, to consider as a friend and a brother, Mr. Kenny John. Let's welcome him, please.
Good morning once again. You say, how do you know when a black man blushing? Just go a couple of shades darker. Thank you, Bevel. To the business community, my story is simply a personal one. My background, obviously, is in insurance. I interned in the actuarial department of a reinsurance company. It's an old British one called M&G, Mercantile General. After that, I went to the Chartered Insurance Institute of Great Britain and started working in the market of as an insurance broker, a reinsurance broker, global broker. Within 2.5 years of that, I got a call from my father saying, boy, what you doing out there? We have work to do down here. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm having a good life in the UK, in London, you know. You are involved in global business, and therefore your pay grade and a very shy skill set, small set of people. Why would you want to go back to an island that is 110,000 people, where you know that your parents are going to be exactly over you. You believe, because you went to business school, that my education has gotten me to this stage. And, you know, getting the job as a reinsurance broker actually was headhunted, because insurance is not something that everybody say that, oh, I want to be an insurance man. You know, you get police, doctor, lawyer, etc., etc. So anybody that attends the Chartered Insurance Institute, automatically companies come looking because, oh, that's somebody who's interested. Yes? In doing what I did, and in the reinsurance company as in actuarial department, we created products. We created investment products. Yes? We created the use of hundreds of millions of dollars, what to do with it. Simple algorithms that would go 10 years in the past, 10 years before, and 30 different commodities, guilds, governments, whatever, financial services. My job as a reinsurance broker was to design treaties. So we buy insurance policies. In the insurance world, they buy treaties. So an insurance company also buys insurance. Yes? As you could imagine, most of these situations, what you do, use systems. Yes? Made up of algorithms to get you to the point where you design it, what is best for a particular company. And every company is not the same. Even in the Caribbean, even in Grenada. In 1995, Grenada had about 6 local companies. Today there are 2. We're proud to be one of them. But the existence of these companies are not simply because everybody else sell out. It involves the practical application of scientific knowledge. So, coming back here, my father said to me that, look, everybody's talking about we need a system, but he put me on notice. This is what I think of computers. You have to buy them, you have to maintain them, you have to upgrade them, and then they're obsolete. So that is the biggest thief that I could ever imagine as a businessman. Yes? What say you? He, like most of our people in that industry at that time, who grew up in that industry, basically dealt with sales, yes, and sales support, not company infrastructure, investments, yes, aggregates. I'm the technical guy. So you could imagine I left the job about 5 times when both of us fall out. Yes, and for whatever reason, take up my bag, I'm going home. And he calls my wife and say, is Ken okay? But we prevailed. In about 2008, I got sick of the system that we purchased. Not because it wasn't a good off-the-shelf system, but it was not giving me what I needed. And remember, I'm a reinsurance person as far as my background is concerned. So I wanted my reinsurance figures in the way that it ought to be. Analyzing data of aggregates, analyzing subset of aggregates, understanding, having a physical and a mental print in my mind of what the structure of our aggregates are. How many people you have just homes, and what is the sum insured bands, that's a word we use in that, of this particular subset. Where does your business lie? Are you top heavy, you know, so that means you have more of the larger properties, or do you have, you know, are you bottom heavy? So you need to know that, because the design and the structure of your program, yes, from up there all the way down to the policies you're selling, it matters. So I decided, listen, I'm going to build my own system. And went through a couple of years trying to find somebody here, because I did not want it to be a foreign company. One day, as my wife was trying to get me to go to Latin dancing with a few other friends, which I objected and avoided until, there was no choice, the screw was turned. I agreed. The dancer, the instructor, gentleman with a US accent, extract of Grenada. So, I'm sitting there looking at this guy twirling and swinging and everything, and, what does he really do? A big man like that, you can't be just doing Latin dancing and living in Grenada. What is it? Incidentally, he was part of a team that did IT support services for Bank of America, East Coast. So the company that did the support, that means every aspect of it, you have about more degrees than we could put letters in different areas. And I approached him and said, listen, I want to do something and I want to do it right here. I don't want to go abroad. Obviously, he's not an insurer. However, he has knowledge of financial services. So we got together, and using the knowledge that I had, so remember, I'm a reinsurance guy, so that is the top part of the chain of in an insurance company. That's where we started. I just want my figures. But as we went deeper into it, we found that we have to go lower, and all the way down to the bottom to the CSRs. So we created a program, yes, to give you a full delivery service in terms from CSRs all the way up to analytics. What I wanted, at every quarter, one page that tells me my aggregates for homeowners, for commercial, that told me my average rates, that told me my income. One page. Most of my friends, even in the UK, by now, remember, the people who I would be broken to, most of them are either senior underwriters or MDs of reinsurance companies at this point. So consulting them, Kenny, you're crazy. Now, I am in no way a techie person. My closest, I would say my closest and most memorable experience with regards to tech is my college professor in the UK. His name was Professor Webb. The interesting fact about him is that he had no interest in end user stuff. What he had interest in was what is behind, what creates systems that would then allow end users. And so his lessons, that was his teaching. So I have a very huge curiosity of what happens and how that works. With that system, all the interfaces, everything there, you could imagine it took me 2 years to implement that in our company. Not because the program wasn't ready, but the cultural buy-in. How do you move a piece of paper? I have a proposal form and which you fill out manually, and you have to move that into a system. Worse yet, we created something called a day-end activity. It means that every single transaction that took place from every single CSR was recorded, printed, there was a manager's report, and there was also that CSR's report. Now you know what we got. Also, you're watching us. And that is the mentality of a lot of our workers. And my simple answer was yes, the computer is not yours. Because you have to put that in that context and that language in order for them to understand what to do. It means that we kept two things. Finance department, instantly, you had every record on every day of what took place. You also had quality control as everything that is needed to put in place to create an insurance policy. That means the information of the individual, yes, the subject matter to insure, and the type of policy every single day. And if there was any shortfall, you picked that up at the end of each day. Why every day? Because if you wait for that information to take place in 1 week or 1 month, disaster. Yes? So my story is simple, of a story which businesses generally understand. And that system is going strong today, except for one simple thing. We have outgrown, we know more problems about the system of what it doesn't do. And now even the young ones, boss, shouldn't we be able to do this and do that? And so the question about AI is as relevant as it is poignant. Yes? One further thing, connectivity. We have 4 branches in Grenada. We do business also in the Eastern Caribbean. We were able to create portals, and I'm not talking about with 2,000 people. I'm talking about with 5,000 people on a particular program. Yes? Into St. Lucia, for example, where the institution could have gone into that portal and in real time everybody knows. We do the same with our branches in Grenada. Every day, and testament to what Brent and those guys are doing, that regardless of where you are in Grenada, if you wanted to renew or do a new business in real time, it is there. And the guys in my IT department, and yes, we don't have an IT person, you have an IT department, and for businesses it's important that you understand that. You have a department, yes, that deals with that. And now the guys who started out as simply IT people themselves have grown exponentially in terms of their ability, their foresight, the context of what it is they understand and should be doing. We built part of that system using SGU students in their final year. Yes? Every summer, we did internships. We want to build this piece. Yes? I need something to show that, hey, I'm going through my course and I have a project. We had only one problem with that process. When those students went back to school, the tutor was upset with us because they would have grown so much in terms of understanding practical application of scientific knowledge, not theory. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny, very, very much. There are a couple of points I hope we're getting. We heard from Brent with regard to having a local bandwidth factory. It already exists. It's called the Grenada Internet Exchange Point. It is a thing upon which local internet traffic can be guaranteed to run inside of the local internet environment. We heard from Kevin Kilawan of NUCO and Stephen Lee of Architects about some of the issues in terms of the teams that need to be built and the mindset that needs to yoke IT requirements into business priorities, and some of the coming trends that if we prepare well for it, we can actually be at the front line of a new inflection point inside of the internet and the technology growth. We heard from Kenny, and one of the things that I hope you picked up inside of that was a statement about it is not sufficient anymore to have an IT person. We need an IT department. Now, I know some may say, well, my business is too small to have a whole department. And the issue is not whether you have an in-house department. The issue is recognizing that ICTs are so complex today that it is unreasonable to expect one person to know everything about everything that matters. And so even if you didn't have an IT department, you should have a business strategy for getting IT advice that is multidimensional. Very, very important. And it's something that I believe, and we've been looking at it from the standpoint of the Apex Technology Academy, that yokes training taking place in our community colleges, in our universities, but also now connecting it to our business and chambers of commerce so that there is a connection between the identified needs of the business community and the training goals and requirements that are set in a much more agile and dynamic way for the Caribbean. And I can say this, I know ICANN has, as part of its pool of supporting resources, support from the network, the North American Network Operators Group. The Academy has support from the Caribbean Network Operators Group. There are other internet organizations and technology groupings that have an interest in working alongside the business community to ensure that that kind of knowledge that is needed to support and sustain our technology needs is available to us all. The last presenter in this lightning round, I'm going to ask Albert Daniel of ICANN to come and share a bit about domain names. And we all know domain names, right? .coms and .orgs and .nets. What many of us may not know as much about are .local domain names, .gd, .ai, .bb, .tt, .gy. And the reason those things aren't as well known, this comes down to some simple marketing facts. It is not as heavily promoted as those who promote .coms and .orgs and .nets. But here's the other thing that we may not know. Not being as heavily promoted doesn't mean that it is any less valuable. In fact, if we are talking about building the domestic digital economy, it is one of the things that attention needs to be paid to create a sense of a local or country brand for local businesses. And again, that's not a conversation that typically happens. So if you have to get a domain name, the reflex is to tell the IT person, go grab a .com. Not often do we sit down and have a conversation about what will a .gd do for us? How can we leverage this to create our space in the global world that says that we are Grenadian or that we are Caribbean? And what would that do to our brand? And what should we do to invest in brand GD so that anyone who has it has the same perception of value? Because that's where the game is really played. The perception of value. They've done it for .com. We have it for .org. It exists for .edu and these other domain names. But if we want it to exist for .gd or for .lc or for .bb, then an equivalent level of attention, care, and investment has to be placed in it for us to get a brand that is our country brand. So if we're selling local jams, local chocolates, local nutmeg products, local goods and manufactured goods and services, it makes sense for us to care about who is building brand.gd. And so I want to invite Albert. Albert, as you heard earlier, is a part of the ICANN team. And he can talk about this subject for the whole day, but we've told him to limit it to 4 minutes. And I also asked Albert to also share with us some of the security concerns around domain names, because it's the other part of the underspoken conversation. All of these things that we're talking about in terms of technology, whether it's AI, infrastructure, bandwidth, online services, .gd, has a security component that we need to be aware of, and I'll leave Albert to share with you. So let's welcome Mr. Albert Daniel, ICANN representative for the group.
Thank you very much, Bevel. Bevel claims to be my friend, but Kenny, Stephen, myself, and the other speakers this morning have this competition going of who got the least amount of notice to speak here. And Kenny, I know Kenny is behind me because he had a whiff yesterday, but I think many of you would have seen me get up and walk across to Bevel's seat when I was summoned, and that is the extent of notice that I've had here. But, you know, in the Caribbean, we do things a little bit differently. I work for ICANN Internet Corporation for assigned names and numbers, and we coordinate the Internet's unique system of identifiers, the numbers and the names, and that system of translation of names into numbers. But before I worked with ICANN, I did actually have a life. I was the CCTLD manager. I was the manager of one of these domain names, .lc for St. Lucia. And our main objective was to see how we could take the technology and get it to serve the needs of business. I don't have any slides, but I do have this banner, fortunately, which was put up by the managers of the top-level domain name for Grenada, .gd. And if you take a quick look at that, you will see there are several subject matter domain names that end in .gd. And I give you fair warning, because I did try out some of these before I came up to the podium, and many of them work. So if you type in coolingtech.gd or moe.gov.gd or moviepalace.gd, those will work, but some of the others are suggestions for what you as business people could have for your own businesses. So some of them may not necessarily take you to a website right now. So the whole idea is that what ICANN does is we ensure that this system works, where you can type in one of these names and it gets to the server that has a particular IP address that allows your business to serve its service. And this is a tremendous opportunity for local and regional businesses. 9 times out of 10, a company like Cooling Tech, for example, may not have been able to get coolingtech.com, which is what many of you may think would be an appropriate domain name for Cooling Tech. Similarly, movieplace.gd, the organization may not have been able to get movieplace.com, which is what they may have thought would be the best for them. But here we have a situation with several examples of domain names which could represent directly your business, ending in .gd, where you are in the same physical location as the manager of this domain name. I had a situation in St. Lucia where one of our top television stations, I should call the name, HTS, refused to get a .lc domain name. He got hts.com. And then at some point, his IT manager forgot to renew hts.com. And there was literally nothing he could do. He had to go through an entire marketing campaign to get people to think, well, okay, htsofficial.org is the official website, more complicated than hts.lc. If he had gotten an hts.lc and he had forgotten to pay his renewal fee, all he would have to do is pick up the phone and call Albert, who's right there in St. Lucia, who managed the .lc at the time, and he would say, look, Albert, I forgot to pay this thing. Can you bring this domain name back up? And then the business impact is that his business would be up and running again. So this is the kind of advantage you can get by having your business name registered on your country code top-level domain for the country. ICANN manages both domain names, the generic ones, .hotels, .doctors, .cars, .banks, .com, .org, .edu, and so on. But we also work very closely with the CCTLD managers of your country code top-level domain names. And I leave it to you to determine the kind of business impact that can exist if you take the name of whatever it is you're selling and you put it before a .gd, and all of a sudden the whole world knows you can get rum.gd, roti.gd, music.gd, beaches.gd, and it's on a very stable platform. I just read an article literally moments ago which comes now to the security aspect of these domain names. There's something called DNSSEC, and as Bevel says, you don't need to know what DNSSEC is. All you need to know is that DNSSEC gives you a level of security on top of the open internet that we started off with. So it makes your online transactions safer. If your bank is using DNSSEC, when you type in your username and password to do your online banking, there is less of a likelihood that your account will be attacked. And the implementation of DNSSEC now is becoming a criteria for determining whether or not somebody puts their domain name below your CCTLD. So when they check to see, should I get, for example, a .ai, the question will come, is .ai using DNSSEC? So your ICANN has signed the root of the internet. We know ICANN has done what it needs to do in terms of the encryption and so on. Your web service providers also need to do their part in ensuring that they apply DNSSEC, that security layer. And then finally, your local ISPs also need to let the DNSSEC traffic pass. And all of us in that chain need to do what we do collaboratively to ensure that businesses get the benefit. So I'll just leave you with those 2 points. Ask your ISPs, have you deployed DNSSEC? And if they say no, ask them, why is it that you don't want my online banking to be safer? And I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you very much.
So we've heard some interesting points as part of the conversation, which I believe are, quite important for us to understand and start moving our minds to understanding using as a business driver the internet, and therefore making sure that we invest in the technology and the infrastructure necessary to move our businesses forward. We now move into the question and answer scenario. And I would like to invite participants. You can call on anyone who have spoken before to find out some information of how did they do this? How can I do that? Yes? The most important thing that you have to think of is that we do not need someone coming from Europe, necessarily the United States. They are experts locally and regionally, yes? That have provided yeoman service. We just don't advertise it. And because some of our businesses and our business leaders are ourselves shy in terms of feeling that, okay, someone might see me as asking a stupid question. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So, floor is open. There are 2 mics. At this point in time, anyone and anybody who would have spoken before, if you want to ask them a question, or just have a conversation. Doesn't necessarily have to be a question. Just let's converse. Have a lady there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Given he talked about the .com, .org compared to .gd, given the size of our markets, would it not be wiser to have a regional domain name that serves all the islands so that we have more impact globally? Because .com and .org are not specifically country local. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure, definitely. I'd let Albert deal with that.
So, Naila, I did not pay her to ask the question that allows me to say everything I wanted to say in Grenada. So, you as a business community are one of the stakeholder groups that determines the type of internet that you have. When we started the internet, we had just a few domain names, .com, .org, .edu, .net. And what you did as a community is that you said that we want more competition, we want more innovation, we want more choice. So the ICANN staff got together and we facilitated your discussions, your meetings, and so on. And you eventually said, okay, well, we are thinking that we should have as many as 1,200 new generic top-level domain names. Examples, .hotels, .cars, .ibm, .nyc. Unfortunately, there's no .caribbean, there's no .caricom, there's no .oecs. Why? Because even though you are members, businesses, Caribbean nationals, even though you are members of the multi-stakeholder community, you did not participate in those discussions that took place globally. What happened? There was this program for getting these new generic top-level domain names, and it was so expensive because none of us were there to say, look, $185,000, I think that's the number, to get the process going is too much for us in the Caribbean. Maybe you should have a special system for us as a region, which is priced a lot less than that, so that we can get .caribbean or .beaches. She's back up at the mic, so this is going to be a backward and forward. So here's the thing. There was the opportunity to get those kinds of generic top-level domain names by participating in the discussion that takes place in the ICANN multi-stakeholder process. There is a space for business and business representatives and the business community. That, unfortunately, is one of the smallest communities that are represented in the ICANN meeting. There's an ICANN meeting taking place, Naila said it, from the 11th of March. You can all participate virtually. There is no cost of participation, but this is where you need to be asking precisely those kinds of questions. And I will see you afterwards to make sure that you participate virtually in that meeting, because I don't think that you bought a ticket to go to Cancun, Mexico for that meeting.
I might.
Well, and you can, it's not too late. You can still go.
Okay, so I heard what you said. But ultimately, the reason was money, not participation. And the Caribbean has continued to stay behind because we use money for reasons. Money is not the problem, it's prioritization. And we didn't prioritize our own importance as a region. And it's time we correct that. Because if we don't do that, it doesn't matter how many GDs we have, how many BBs or LCs, we are weak as a region, and right now the strength is in partnership. It's all globalization, it's the global citizenship, it's global community, and 110,000 people at home, about 500,000 overseas. We are not enough to make GD prominent enough to be profitable enough. So again, I think as a region, and you guys are at the helm of ICT Week, I think that there is money and that you all should represent us since you're here giving us advice and you're in the industry and you're at the front line of the industry, that someone takes responsibility to find the money, convince who needs to be convinced, and then advocate for the importance of the OECS. And then we'll have an OECS name, and if you need help doing that, I'll help.
And I'm sure that Kenny is ecstatic, and also Bevel, to hear this message coming from that microphone. You should be up here. And I can tell you where some money is available within the whole ICANN structure. There were several processes, in getting the new generic top-level domain names, but the long and short of it is right now there is 233 million US dollars sitting in a pool where you, the global multi-stakeholder community, is now discussing how those funds are going to be used. We can give you the guidance. We can tell you that vegetables are good for you, you should eat them. But ultimately, you still have to eat those vegetables yourself. I can't come and put the vegetables in your mouth and push your mouth up and down to chew it. The community has to choose to take action. So I'm telling you, go to that ICANN meeting. I'll tell you how to get there. Find out where you can bring this message to the community about what the Caribbean wants to do. We will help you. This is my job as a stakeholder engagement manager for the region. I will tell you where to go, how to maneuver, how to speak, and so on, and get you involved so that as a region, we can say, okay, ICANN community, we know that these funds are available. We are stakeholders just as much as any other stakeholders, and we want this technology to benefit our country, our region, and our businesses. We need to find some way so that some of these funds can be applied to a Caribbean project, to an OECS project, to a Caribbean project, so that our local and regional businesses can benefit.
And I appreciate you wanting to tell me personally, but I think everyone in the room is interested. And
Same message.
And I think there's power in numbers.
Absolutely.
So I think it would be nice to just take a tiny detour and tell us how to have our voice heard, how to represent our significance, and how to actually get it done, because I think we can all get it done.
Okay, so let's talk about the ICANN multi-stakeholder community. ICANN is an organization that coordinates the Internet's unique system of identifiers. However, there's something more important referred to as an ICANN multi-stakeholder, ICANN ecosystem, which has three parts. The most important part of that ICANN ecosystem is you, the ICANN stakeholders, the global stakeholders, representatives of business, representatives of governments, representatives of end users, the technical community, academia, and so on. You are the ones who sit and have discussions on what you want to happen with the internet. Exactly the kind of discussion we are having now. The Caribbean, which is a regional stakeholder grouping, would like to see domain names that benefit us as a region. So you have these discussions taking place. The ICANN org facilitates these discussions. So we got a hotel in Cancun, Mexico. We made sure it was secure. We made sure you're going to get good vegetarian food, for those of you who are vegetarian. And we have administrative structures and so on to support your discussions. We've set up all of these compartments in the community, a compartment for business representatives, compartment for government, technical, and so on. And we ensure that you are able to have the best discussions that you can have so that the views of your stakeholder group can surface. So when we as a Caribbean do not attend these kinds of meetings, nobody knows what our needs are, nobody knows what our concerns are, and so on. We can get you there. ICANN has fellowship programs where we pay for your airfare and your accommodation to attend if there's something that you feel you can bring back, and we will guide you. Even if you decide you just want to jump on a plane and go yourself, as a business, you can go. There's no registration fee or anything like that. I can guide you and tell you exactly how you go. ICANN.org, ICANN.org, has a banner talking about the the Cancun meeting coming up, and anyone who's interested can just go there and you see all of the details. When you attend this ICANN meeting, you speak up about what you want. You speak up about what you are concerned about, and you then volunteer to sit on policy development working groups where you can fashion the actual policies that will give you the kind of internet you want. So that in the next round, for example, of having generic top-level domain names, there will be some sort of consideration for what we need as a region, as business people in the Caribbean. So I will put a pin there. I see we have one other person up at the podium. I did not intend, I was called to take over what's going on here, but I think it's important. And there are some global concepts that are important. The concept of attending these international meetings as a region and banding together.
I'm actually loving the interest and the passion that's coming from there. Jerry George from St. Lucia. My question is directed towards the .gd TLD managers. While we may not get the answer right now, but hopefully throughout the session we can get that question. But what I'm trying to get at is that we also have the .lc in St. Lucia, and we're getting a lot of resistance from business persons, for example, to register a .lc. And what we see is a lot of cases where the business name, they will tack on an SLU and go for a .com, rather than just get a .lc, because the business name is no longer available, so they tack some extension to create something that is now available. So the question is really, how did they go about really marketing and promoting the .gd so that it will become acceptable? Because this is something I would like to take back home and really try to push for greater acceptance of .lc, and I guess it applies throughout the rest of the region, .ag, .dm, etc., etc., etc.
Thank you very much for that question. We'll have our local genius on that to speak to. Is the other question related to that?
That's not a question, it's a comment. It is related, yes.
Okay, sure. Well, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, in terms of regional domain names, .africa has been registered, and it's run by some friends of mine. I'm William Stuckey. I'm from South Africa. I'm not from Grenada. I will not be attending CanCun, ICANN 76 in CanCun, because I'll be marrying that lady.
Excellent, excellent.
However, some colleagues of mine will be attending, and the reason is because I'm one of the people leading a domain name study for the whole of Africa. Not relevant to here, but we have done this before, and we learned some important lessons from it, in terms of country code domain names. So, first of all, people will tell you, as the gentleman over there said, we want to have a .com domain. When the domain name system was first introduced, and John Postel was the man who was primarily behind it, there was a country code for every country, and there were some generic top-level domain names. And there was a .net for network people. There was a .org for non-profit organizations. There was a .com for commercial organizations, and one or two others. The problem is, or the issue was, at the time, the US CCTLD did not allow you to register Joe's Fish and Chips .us, or .even .co or .com US. They insisted at the time on a geographical system. So you had to register Joe's Fish and Chips .Pasadena, .California, .us. So everyone said, we're not going to do that. And they registered .com instead. So today, .com is not an international domain name. It is 85% is US companies. So by registering a St. Lucia company and with a .com address, you are losing your identity, firstly. So you need to register your .lc. You need to register your .gd. You need to demonstrate to your customers that you are busy, that you are local to your area. And that, I believe, has a great value. And I would suggest that you as ISPs or as IT managers, you tell your companies, you tell your customers, be proud of your country code domain name. It identifies you to your customers as somebody local. In terms of .carib, go for it. $185,000 US dollars, a lot of money though.
It's a lot of money.
And there are a lot of hoops to jump through, but it can be done. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. I think you took 2 minutes off answering Mr. George's question. Thank you very much. His comments are actually very correct in terms of what the intention should be with CCTLDs, country code top level domains. In the case of St. Lucia, in the case of Grenada, my suggestion is, and what we're actually planning to do, is revise our marketing strategy of using your country code top level domain names. And I think that is going to be important because you have to incentivize it. For example, there are a lot of startup businesses. There are a lot of, not-for-profits. You should have some plan where, say, okay, well, we'll probably, to help us improve and our CCTL usage, well, we're going to donate 1 or 2 for startups. We're thinking about, I can't give the details as yet, because all the local registries, the regional registries, we have to meet with them and discuss a new plan of how we're going to market our CCTLD. Case in point, for .gd, in the past, we had a very effective team. We're going to be pulling that team back together. We're going to be partnering as well with internet service providers and better ways in which we can help market the CCTLD.gd. And I think St. Lucia and other Caribbean islands should do the same because, as the gentleman mentioned, there's great benefit in having localization on the internet. Thursday, we're going to talk about some of the challenges as well by not doing certain things. All right?
Let me just add, one of the approaches used was government policy. When we initially got the .gd from the gentleman in Puerto Rico who had it, it hardly existed. There was hardly anybody in Grenada with .gd. So the NTRC decided to work with the government and get the process moving by asking all statutory bodies who had .com domain names to start using .gd. And once you got not even a critical mass, but once you had people realizing that you had .gd in use, we started to see private companies coming on board. We still have some resistance. You will still find 1 or 2 pockets with .coms, but government policy plays a critical role in getting the process moving.
Thank you. And thank you for that comment. I couldn't agree more with the last comment. One thing I wanted to add, thank you. Within the ICANN structure, there is an organization called Country Code Name Supporting Organization. This is where all country codes get together to discuss how they go about promoting their country codes within their own countries, and then they learn from each other. And country codes, that name supporting organization is a really functional organization, and I love attending their meetings because country codes essentially are not competing with each other, right? So .de for Germany has much to share. They have a really a big domain name in terms of number of registrations, and it's really pushed and used as an example in Germany, NL for the Netherlands. The Prime Minister this morning talked about Estonia, which I believe their country code is .ee. Really well-functioning country codes, and I think because exactly like you said, the government invests in the promotion of the country code as well as the local businesses. So one place, if you participate in the ICANN ecosystem that we're talking about here, is to take advantage of the country code name supporting organization. And again, if you make it to Cancun, that's one place, that's one group of people that you want to see in terms of their meetings, because that's where country codes share a lot of experience about how they operate their country domain names and promote them locally. So that's on country codes. And sorry, quickly, one more thing. In terms of the next round, Albert gave a really great example of what happened in the last round and how many lost out on having a new generic top-level domain introduced. The next round is something that's currently under development by the community, again, in terms of working out on the rules for the next round of generic top-level domains. In terms of the organization, I can tell you that ICANN as an org has been instructed for staff to really focus on going beyond the North America community and the Western European communities of what for this next round. We need to do better. We need to have better reach. We need to have better promotion that this is happening. This is the time to jump on it. This is the time to apply for the top level domains that are meaningful for your regions, meaningful for your local businesses. So please participate in those processes. Ask again, Albert, how to do so. But this is the time to do it. And Albert also referred to something, I believe you were thinking about the auction proceeds, where there's a pool of money from this last round that ICANN is not allowed to spend on normal day-to-day operations. That money is set aside, and it will be used to help with future development of the internet around the world. And there will be processes in which people can apply to tap into those funds. I hope that's helpful.
So, on the promoting the local domain, I have a couple of those. The last time I paid $47.49 USD for a GD. I can get that for 99 cents for the first year on GoDaddy, about $14.99 on renewal. If we're going to motivate change, it can't be priced at this level for the average entrepreneur. And a startup in Grenada who is paying, now we've dropped the price, so $600 to an attorney to get their business started, plus the registration fees and everything they have to think about. That's a lot of money. Wouldn't you guys agree? That's a lot of money. So if we want to move something, like any good business, you offer a sale. When the demand has increased, you could raise your price. So I think there needs to be some flexibility on that one.
Thank you.
Hi, Kenny. Just one more point. Something that I would have experienced as a service provider is that we had a company, an organization here that didn't have a GD domain, and they was having problems getting access to the back end of the .com domain. I tried to convince them to buy the .gd domain. They didn't take me on. So you know what I did? I went on and I purchased it myself. And I kept it, and I said, I'm waiting for them to come back. And they did. No, I didn't mark it up and sell it for a ridiculous price. But I'm saying if businesses don't take the opportunity now to protect their identity by buying the GD domains, it's open. Anybody can purchase it. And then they can choose to sell it for you at a way higher price when you need it. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you very much for that point. Thank you very much.
Can I make a point? Okay, just a comment on pricing. Each country operates totally within their own rules. They create their own processes, their own pricing structure. ICANN has nothing to do with that, does not interfere, especially with country code top-level domains. This is a very important and autonomous issue for each country on how they operate their domain. I can tell you because part of what we also in ICANN operate is the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, where we coordinate these resources, such as the name supporting the country code top-level domains. And I don't know how .gd is operated. So in no way I'm saying this is as a judgment value, please. Country codes where there's almost like a multi-stakeholder model within the country that operates the domain. So you have academia, and you have business, and you have the government, and you have different stakeholders represented in how the top-level domain is operated. It is helpful to feed that into your how your country code is operated and how it serves the local community. We tend to see that model seem to thrive, but again, I don't know how that GD is operated and how the pricing structure is created, but I just wanted to say that that's not ICANN does not interfere in any way in the pricing structures.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I bought a .gd domain, right? And I support actually the idea of promoting your country, right? But regardless, though, was based on, I'm not sure, the ICANN representative, I purchased my GD domain from like online, like a New Zealand company, onlydomains.com, right? And also, so I have two questions regarding that. Do they have any local persons that sells these domains? Because the pricing, like she says, 50 US to renew it also, right? You can also, at some other point, I don't understand. So I want to know if there anybody locally that sells the domains, because renewing it is 50 US for you, right? And actually pay 50 US every year. Secondly, also using Amazon Route 53, which I also try to connect. There's it's like they don't recognize the GD domains in that. So I was wondering, like, I'm personally not that sophisticated in that, right? And I do choose self-knowledge, right? Self-learning. So trying to figure out locally, anybody sell it? And secondly, like, what are you guys doing, like, to make sure that like .gd domains end up on like Amazon Route 53, other like internet like servers?
Yeah. Okay. So as Naila said, first of all, the management of your top-level domain name .gd is totally something which is outside of the purview of the ICANN organization. What we have seen in some countries, and I'll give an example of Trinidad. On your cell phones right now, you can go to mag.tt. .tt is the top-level domain for Trinidad and Tobago, and they have a MAG, a multi-stakeholder advisory group. And like the name implies, on this multi-stakeholder advisory group, you have representatives of business, of end users, of governments, and so on. And that grouping is the one that decides on policies for the CCTLD. They decide on what the legislation is going to be for running the CCTLD. They decide on pricing, and they do it in the interest of the community. Now, Lyndon, don't even try to head for the exit because you're coming straight up to the podium. This is someone from the local CCTLD management organization, and he heard the question. So he's going to, this is how we do it in the Caribbean. We give you half a minute's notice, and then you have to come up and let your voice be heard. So Lyndon, maybe if you can just come over and just talk a little bit about how you manage the .gd. My good friend and colleague, Lyndon.
All right, thank you everyone for the questions, and I must say that the session is really interesting thus far. As was mentioned, I am with the NTRC, and I am part of the team that has responsibility for the .gd CCTLD. To answer the gentleman's question first, yes, we do have a local registrar. At the moment, the single entity registered to resell .gd domains locally is Mod1. They do that through their platform names.gd. The price, the lady here who has been vocal all morning referenced, I believe it's from Mod1. They sell, I believe, between 43 and 47 US for registration and renewal. But to the question of pricing, while I appreciate as a business person, and it's important to ensure that pricing is proper, but I challenge you to, well, the room, to think about it as a question of how do you value your identity. Because you reference, one example you referenced, I believe, was the cost for the legal, I don't remember, some legal setup, 600. All the startup costs. So how would you weigh that value, assuming it's a single, incorporation, for example, incorporating your business maybe about 1,200 EC, how would you value that versus a .gd domain where you can get for 47, 40, whatever? And I think a part of the culture too is something that I think Bevel referenced earlier, in that it's, in our context historically at least, maybe it has begun to change. There hasn't been discussion on what should I use for XYZ domain. It's generally, culturally and traditionally, top head, dictate, get a dot whatever, because they look at a GoDaddy, Diner dot, and they see that they can get a .com for $9. And they think, well, I shouldn't be paying more than $9 for a domain because I can get this there for that price. But what does that translate to for the owners of these domains? It means that when we pay, money goes to them, and volume and scale is something naturally that needs to be contextualized, and I think you reference it. I'm not saying that in the context locally, the 47 or 50 US price point is not expensive, but what opportunity can that create? What we need to understand, and maybe people are not fully aware, that the .gd is it's a local, it's a national resource. So when we buy or reuse .gd extension, whether we pay $1, $100 for it, it's a revenue generating stream for the country that government can create policies around and say, hey, because .gd is collecting $1 every year here, we can decide to create policies to create an ecosystem where technology can be supported, better supported. So I am not discounting that from your context, the business community's context, that it may be expensive. But I challenge you in the context of this discussion of transformation, because you said it when Albert, I believe, was talking about the ICANN, and he referenced representation, but you stuck at cost being the problem. Let cost or price now be the opportunity for us to propel ourselves and transform using technology.
No, I appreciate what you said, and I get it. And I think in this room, that's relevant. But we are talking about a country with the GDP that we have, with entrepreneurship at the bottom of the barrel that we need to elevate. And we need the new businesses to get involved in technology. There has to be a startup cost that makes sense to them. And it doesn't make sense to them, is what I'm saying. So I agree with everything you said, but again, no matter what you're selling, if your market isn't buying it, then you can't sell it. So I think there needs to be a transitional period where we're promoting the .gd, and there's a price offer that gets all these small businesses on board, and then take it to wherever. I just think it needs to be revisited based on Grenada's economy.
Agreed.
And based on the needs that we have in the entrepreneurship field, and elevating that sector.
Agreed. And I would again, I believe somebody extended that invitation to you earlier. I would again extend an invitation to you to consult with us, because this is a consultative process. It's about teamwork. We all have an idea in our heads what Grenada should be. But until we get to a common ground of what this transformation means to us, and we can only do that with conversation, then we would get to the next step.
Hello, Stephen Lee, Carabnog. Still on this CCTLD issue, so Lendon don't go too far. But just to I guess, add some more information in the discussion, especially regarding the purchase of the domain name from that New Zealand company and Route 53 and so on. So I just see if I can hatch a few different pieces together. So the ICANN would have given the responsibility or agreed that certain actors in each country operate their CCTLD. That's more like an administrative responsibility where the servers are and the software and all that can be, I guess, anywhere in the world. But what we find historically, and a lot of the Caribbean CCTLDs were originally operated by University of Puerto Rico and have gradually been given back to different countries to operate. So what happens is that a lot of times those operators would have started trying to run the servers themselves. And to Jerry's point about the difficulty in getting your local domain name is because a lot of times somebody is trying to take a registration via email or some web form, get stuff set up on a server, get your DNS up and running. The process is kind of rough, right? And after a while we say, fireburn that. We're going to buy a .com because that's easier for everyone else. What has happened, I think positively though, over the last few years is a lot of the CCTLDs have established arrangements with some of the global platforms like GoDaddy and so on, and 101 Names and so on, and you can actually purchase CCTLDs from some of these. So there are options in which you could go to a local provider and get it, or sometimes you might actually find it on GoDaddy. Right now, by a number of CCTLDs on GoDaddy. Gandhi.net is another one, 101 names. There are a bunch of them. And ultimately, a lot of times the money is coming back to the local CCTLD. So you don't have to worry so much about the cost. It does get into the pricing thing. I know if I buy a TT domain in Trinidad, I'm going to pay TT-NIC X. But if I buy the same domain name on Gandhi, they charge me 3 years at a time, whereas in TT-NIC I could just buy 1 year. Gandhi takes 3 years up front. And they take a $65 administrative fee because they have to get things set up with TT-NIC. But business-wise, it's a good deal for me because I have a click, 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 click process, and I don't have to think about it for 3 years again. So we're weighing the different possibilities and options. We can definitely get the local CCTLDs directly, or sometimes we can get it online. And what I'd encourage us as a community is what can we do to help make the local process more automated, more efficient, easier on everybody else. You know, if the money doesn't need to leave the region, then it doesn't need to. Some engineers involved, because to get the CCTLD on Amazon Route 53 and different DNS providers, somebody has to get routes and servers and stuff going. So local investment is needed to get the infrastructure going, but we have more options in 2023 than we did in 2013.
If I may, just before, I want to say to everybody, we have and did prepare lunch for everyone here. This is compliments Grenada Cooperative Bank. So if you stick around, a few more questions, and please continue.
Thank you. I don't want to get between everyone and their lunch, but there are a couple of points I want to make, possibly in reverse order. First of all, running a name server is not hard. It's not rocket science. In fact, my colleague on the study I told you just now is currently in Cape Town teaching the DNS, advanced DNS training course, and he did the basic training course in Johannesburg last week. So 2 weeks, and you know how to run a name server. You're an expert. You know what DNSSEC is, and you know what all those things are. Secondly, the registry software is available. In fact, his colleagues, not my colleagues, can probably make software for that available to you free of charge if you ask nicely. Okay, so that is the issue. That is not the issue. What is the issue is that when you're talking about a business, and he says, do I want a .com for $10, or do I want a .gd for $50? He's going to say, hell, I want a .com. Okay? And to give you an example, I'm from South Africa. .za is the biggest, the most successful registry in Africa with 1.3 million registrations. Take a guess what a domain costs for a year? $5. Okay? It's not hard. Domain names, CCTLD domain names, are not the right place to look for to make income. All right?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. You know, I'm really pleased with the engagement, lifting the level of conversation, the understanding. Basically, when we envisage this, this not event, but this initiative, these are the kind of thought processes, and I want to thank you all for coming and who participated. It's not going to end here. You know, there's a whole week of activities, you know, definitely targeted at different audience, but it doesn't mean that you can't attend, because to attend is basically free. The voices, we wanted a chance to have the business community to speak freely, yes? And sometimes the expressions of frustration to come out by having the people who matter, who are involved, yes, for you to get explanations and learn a bit more of how you can participate in a wider conversation. This is for us the beginning, the Grenada Industry of Chamber of Commerce, yes, is proud to have been the host. We took a leap of faith in in trying to organize this. We knew that it's not going to be a very popular subject because, as was said earlier, this topic is not the sexy part of IT or the internet. It's not. But this is what we need to understand. Yes? This is the importance of infrastructure to enable us, yes, to reimagine our society and thus our economy. At this time, any more questions, suggestions, comments?
Thanks. Just quickly, and I said it this morning, and I think it's a good opportunity to repeat here. This is not an event, it's an initiative, and the amount of energy and attention and input that was made on the .gd issue, for me, has already flagged it as one of the things that we'll place as a priority for further discussion toward action going forward. And I want to make this point, and I really thank you for your candor and your insistence on having attention paid to some of the fundamentals, including the economics of it. It is not acceptable for local businesses to be asked to pay extraordinary amounts to get their identity secured. It is not acceptable. And so it then becomes a question of who then sponsors, pays, subsidizes, or covers the cost of securing our identity. I've spoken to two of the reps at .gd, and I said we can sit down. There are many models for how you can deliver an affordable CCTLD service without financially burdening those who wish to identify themselves as .gd. And we'll be discussing those models and bringing them to you. In that regard, and I believe there is place for a very low-cost, free to low-cost service to local businesses that want to identify as .gd. And if you want to make your money, there are many models about getting others, particularly international brands, to pay premiums for having their brands registered in your space. But that burden should not be placed on the local businesses if you want to create a brand Grenada online. You want as many businesses identifying as that, and you want, therefore, the lowest possible barriers to registration. And so that's something that we can discuss inside of a special forum looking at .gd, Grenada business, and the identity of Grenadian organizations, businesses, and concerns online. I will leave it to .gd to set the date and set the time, but I know you have the commitment of Aaron, you have the commitment of ICANN, yes, that's a 2 thumbs up, yes, and we have the commitment of the NTRC that this is something that we definitely want to have in full alignment with the needs and requirements of the Grenada business community. So I just wanted to give you that assurance. This is what we meant at the start when we said the party now start, right? We're using these discussions and we're using this feedback to determine the priorities for action going forward. So thank you again for making it clear that you're not accepting this unreasonable pricing model. I hope .gd heard her loud and clear, because it wasn't just her voice, it was a voice that it was a representative voice of the business community, present and not present. So we're with you. We're with you all. And again, I just want to echo Kenny's sentiments of thank you for making the forum the lively environment that it was for us to get to these kinds of issues so that we can get some real solutions going for real. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, once again. Compliments of the Grenada Cooperative Bank. We are grateful for their insight, their understanding of what we're trying to do. Chamber of Commerce is proud to have been host. This was not easy NTRC, everybody who participated. The people in the room who have come from abroad, we can't really pay them to come to do this. They're significant salaries, and I am joking and giving notch to my comrades here. I think we have to start somewhere. Basically because digital transformation is not something that's coming. It's already here, and we can't be left behind. So, that being said, thank you for attending. Thank you for your participation. Sorry, one. Yeah. We'd just like to have also, just before you start, a little group photo so we can acknowledge, a as a community participation, obviously that is something at your own decision. But go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just want to speak to education and the school system. I want to speak to the technology in the schools and the classroom and the weak infrastructure that's there. So it's like a call to the techies that are here to rescue the education system with their business, the startups, especially looking at grades. Teachers are still writing report cards, killing teachers, killing parents. I think the time for that has come and gone. And so while you have the facilities in place, the education is necessary and needed to upscale the teachers, upscale the parents, and upscale the managers of the school system, notice how I'm saying it, so that we can have faster, speedy, like your one-page report, that can happen quickly and stop the stubborn parents who have to leave their jobs to go to schools to get a report that can be sent home to them on their phones. So the persons who are in here, wake up, rescue the education system. We have a crisis.
Thank you, and I would encourage you to come tomorrow, because the policymakers, that's a session for them, and even come Friday, where we intend to have a bunch of students here. We have some presents for them. I'm not going to speak too much on that. It will be a little bit of a surprise, but definitely, thank you very much. And can you please, if we can just huddle a little together, just to have just a little group photo.
In the seats.